There is a thread that runs between two people who have never met. Tonight in Mombasa, a woman is about to pull it. She has no idea what it's attached to. The Indian Ocean does not forgive. Mariam learned that early, by watching. She was 11 the first time she saw the sea take a man, not drown him. Take him. Tonight she was 26, crouched on a corrugated rooftop above Fort Jesus. The city spread beneath her like something she was about to inherit. She didn't know that yet. What she knew, the tide would swallow that loading dock in 40 minutes. What she knew, Container Bay 7 Bravo held a shipment marked agricultural machinery, cleared by a port officer whose daughter had just gotten school fees nobody could explain. What she knew, the man down there in a white kanzu and shoes too clean for salt water, was Bwana Omar, cousin to a senator, until 11 days ago, the most reliable man in the corridor. What she didn't understand was the thread. It came the way it always did. A shimmer at the edge of her vision, silver, almost blue. It ran from Omar's chest, across the dock, across the black water, and vanished behind her shoulder. Follow it and find the truth, her grandmother used to say. Pull it and break the world. Mariam blinked it away. She'd been blinking it away for 15 years. 3 photographs, timestamp 3:16 a.m. She sent them to a number saved as Mama Umboga, not her vegetable seller, just a protocol. Then she pulled her lasso tight against the wind and waited. The way she'd always waited, for rent, for a father who came home smelling of regret, for a letter that finally said, "You are enough." The waiting never stopped. You just learned to fill it with information. Below, Omar laughed, the kind of laugh that meant he'd agreed to something he shouldn't have. Then the thread pulled harder, a hook beneath her sternum. She looked up. A boat. No lights, engine down to a whisper. Coming from the north, past a patrol schedule it should never have known. This wasn't a transaction. This was a termination. Omar, she thought, you should have paid what you owed. She was moving before she'd decided to. Down the fire stairs, through the alley that smelled of cassava and cat, past the madrasa where the old men would soon rise for Fajr. She wasn't saving Omar. She was getting clear before the men who worked for Hussein Salim came looking for whoever stood too close. Then she heard it. Not the shot was suppressed. The sound of a body entering the water, a secret being sealed. The thread snapped, clean, like a paper cut, in her chest. She stopped. She breathed. You saw nothing, she told herself. You know nothing. But she had the photographs. And her hands, she noticed, were perfectly steady, the most honest thing she knew about herself. Mariam Abdallah was born with salt in her lungs and mathematics in her blood, in a city that ate its daughters alive. She survived by learning its grammar. Who owned whom? What moved where? Which debts were paper and which were carved into bone? What she didn't know yet was that one of those threads, the impossible one, ran straight to a man she had never met. 4,100 kilometers away, in an apartment that cost more than her whole neighborhood earned in a year. A man stood at a window, watching the Thames, rubbing 2 fingers absently below his sternum, as though something had just tugged. The empire starts with a body in the water. It always does. Three weeks earlier, the matatu to town smelled of perfume, ambition, and somebody's illegal samosa business. Mariam stood in the aisle, laptop bag wedged at her hip, calculating. 8:47, 13 minutes to reach her desk, buy her chai, and look like a woman who hadn't spent her night photographing a crime at the port. Her eyes were gritty. She'd hidden it with kajal, made her look intense instead of exhausted. a useful distinction in her line of work. Her profession had layers. On paper, a data analyst. Underneath, an information broker. And beneath even that, the threads. The shimmer she had never discussed with anyone alive. Received. Clean. 8,000 shillings incoming. $46 for a night that could have gotten her killed. Not the saddest math she'd done on a Monday. She typed back, "Not yet. Give it a week. Things are hot at the port." Watched the tick turn blue. Someone was awake. Watching. Reassuring and faintly threatening both at once. Outside, Mombasa performed its morning ritual. School children, boda bodas, women in bui moving with the speed of people who'd always had somewhere to be. Above it all, the Kilindini port cranes. You could not be in this city and forget the port. It was Mombasa's spine, its oldest, most treacherous lover, and it belonged, in the way that mattered, the way no registry would ever say, to the Salim family. Everyone in Mombasa knew the Salims the way you know weather. The legitimate face was formidable: port contracts, freight clearing, a foundation that funded school libraries. The other face moved in lowered voices: drugs, riding cold chain containers built for real medicine, land quietly bought from families who didn't understand the new digitization forms, elegant the way all well-designed crimes are elegant. And beneath even that, a thicker line Mariam had never traced, running north, west, into a financial system she'd only read about in an investigation that won its journalist a prize. And then, very quietly, a relocation. Wewe unakaa tired, Mama Fatuma said, handing over chai spiced at proportions she treated as classified. "I sleep fine," Mariam lied. "Your eyes say otherwise." A mandazi pushed into her hand. "Eat, you can't think on empty." It was warm and slightly sweet and tasted like every hard morning that had ever become survivable. 4 desks. One intern who knew more Python than anyone in the building. A boss, gentle, meticulous, who genuinely believed in the business they appeared to be running. Mariam kept her other life perfectly invisible from him. She opened her real laptop. Flower Cooperative data. Clean, honest, genuinely useful. Then her other phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. "Habari Yako," said a voice. Male, young, a Mombasa accent with something else underneath. Educated somewhere that wasn't here. "I'm told you do research," he said. "Quantitative. Due diligence. That's what it says on the website." A pause, the kind that comes before something that will complicate your life. "I need due diligence on a port logistics company, Salim Maritime, and its subsidiary structure." Mariam's hand tightened on the phone, so slightly no one would have seen it. And there it was, the thread. 9:17 a.m. in a room that smelled of instant coffee, silver blue, running from the phone in her hand, through the wall, the street, the harbour, out toward whatever lay on the other end of the line. "My employer is interested in the Salim Group's international exposure," the voice said, "a particular class of asset-backed arrangement." She understood exactly what he meant. In her stomach, the most reliable part of her analytical apparatus. Someone was looking at the Salims the way a surgeon looks at a problem, clinically, from the outside, hunting for the incision point. "I'd need to meet the employer," she said. "That will happen when appropriate. This city will kill you if you aren't direct." A pause, almost a laugh. "Yes," he said, "it does that." 30,000 shillings. A holding fee. It arrived in 43 minutes. Her chest was doing the thing again, that low, patient pull just below the sternum. Like a compass needle that didn't care which direction she wanted to go. Due north, it said, into the eye of it. She left at 1:30. Told Kevin it was a site visit, true in the sense that she was visiting a site she needed to visit. Through the CBD heat, past them Kokoteni carts, down into Old Town, to a house on Moana Kupona Street. Her grandmother's house. Her grandmother 3 years dead. The house somehow still in her name. 4 rooms, the smell of old wood, oudi incense, salt, coral block walls that kept out the worst of the heat. A carved wooden door she'd grown up believing was just a door, and now understood was a small work of art. She climbed to the roof. From here, the harbour was laid bare. The cranes, the dhows, unchanged for centuries, the dark line of Likoni where the ferry crossed, international exposure, asset-backed. Someone wanted to take the Salim architecture apart, or capture it. You didn't burn down a working port if you could redirect it instead. And the thread she'd seen that morning, it was pointing outward, away from the coast, into the ocean or the sky, or whatever lay past the horizon she could never quite see. Salim Maritime Limited, registered Mombasa 2003. Director Hajja Rukia Salim. Director Hussein Jamal Salim, born 1991. She paused. She knew the name the way you know a weather warning. But a name in a registry is different from a name in the city's mouth. She kept clicking. A blurry photograph, a port industry dinner. Tall, light-skinned coastal, dressed in a dark kanzu over a white dress shirt. A perfect synthesis of here and somewhere else entirely. Smiling for the camera while thinking about something else completely. She looked at the photograph longer than was professionally necessary. This is a client, she told herself, except it wasn't. It was worse than that. The call to Maghrib rose from the mosque at the end of the street, warm, certain, as it had for hundreds of years. Pull it and break the world, her grandmother's voice said, from whatever geography the dead inhabit. Mariam closed the laptop. She stayed until the first stars appeared over the Indian Ocean. Then she went downstairs to make tea and earn her keep. 300 kilometers inland in Nairobi, a man named Kamau Njoroge pinned a new photograph to his board. A container ship, Bay 7 Bravo. A body entering the water. 6 months of red string and transaction records. And a source who left no name, no face, just data. Clean as salt. He picked up his phone, called London. The source delivered again, he said. Someone's getting bolder, or more desperate. A voice answered, calm, British, expensive. Start the timeline, it said. We're moving. Kamau pinned a blank index card to the center of the board. In careful capital letters he wrote, "Who is she?" He didn't know that in a Knightsbridge apartment someone else was asking exactly the same question, about exactly the same woman, for entirely different reasons.